Welcome back to the show, everybody. Take a look at these numbers while we run the headlines here. We're going to talk about MicroStrategy is in trouble. You're going to want every bit of that. MtGox Bitcoin dump incoming. Ava Labs Kyle Roche debacle. We're going to talk about that. And the XRP Ledger NFT vote. You're going to want it. We got Stellar in the news. We're going to do a FedNow digital dollar deep dive. I hope we get to the bottom of it here, and I think we will. And we're going to hear from one legal analyst that says Ripple is going to win this case against the SEC. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow us on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook for all the exclusive content on digital assets, crypto, Ripple, and XRP. Shout out to CoinPetrika for the numbers this morning. 1,023 billion, ladies and gentlemen. Bitcoin right now, 20,000, slightly over. Ethereum, 1,500 plus. We see XRP at the number 7 spot at 32 cents. If you have not done it, there are some amazing opportunities on link2.com. You have to be an accredited investor. If you're around the world, remember, your requirements may be little to none. And if you're in the US, find out what they are. If you're already a member, make sure you click the link, because the best opportunities for these, I'm telling you, just incredible pricing, minimums, and pricing for all of these things. I wanted Zipline, and y'all bought me out. I'm a member that she did that to me. But don't mess around, because look, it could happen to me. It could happen to you. If you want to get some of this stuff, do not mess around. Make the move. Link underneath the video for all the specials. Look at this right here. Breaking from Washington, D.C., ladies and gentlemen. MicroStrategy founder, CEO Michael Saylor is being sued for allegedly not paying income tax in the district in more than 10 years he has lived there. We will reserve judgment, says ProCoin News, and shout out to you for doing so, and I will as well. But I tell you what, I'm excited to hear Michael Saylor put his little boat accident strategy to work here, because this was his advice to everybody else when he said it. Check it out. I'm going to roll this for you.
What do you do when the government tries to tax your Bitcoin?
And at the end of the day, you can tell everybody to go fuck themselves. You can put it in your head, memorize the freaking key, right? And it's here. And then, you know, the classic Bitcoiner response is, oh, yeah, my Bitcoin, I lost it in a boating accident. You ever heard that phrase? It's kind of a trope, but what it means is, at the end of the day, if you push me too far, I lost it, it's gone.
What do you do?
Oh, really? Well, I tell you what, Michael Saylor, I'm excited to see how this boat accident excuse holds up with the Washington, D.C. attorney and you being sued over not paying income taxes here, the attorney general there, especially if they sit your ass in jail for contempt if you don't turn over the information required of you. Here's a fun fact. Department of Homeland Security knows who Satoshi is. They say it's 4 people and they've interviewed him, and Bitcoin can be tracked. I'd be careful how much you listen to Michael Saylor. Michael Saylor was the biggest loser in the dot-com bubble. He lost over $13 billion. Don't believe me? Google it. Make sure you know what you hold, and make sure you know who you're listening to. And more importantly, listen to yourself. Right here, MtGox, we've been wondering, when is the 100,000+ Bitcoin going to be released? Well, Richard Hart shares right here a paper that says basically they're getting ready to do some releases right here. Rehabilitation creditors should read this document carefully, as it contains information regarding the repayment process, okay? So it says here, through the Tokyo District Court was made final and binding November 16th, 2021. It goes here, dated July 6, 2022, to ensure safe and secure repayments. The rehabilitation trustee, in accordance with provisions of the rehabilitation plan and with permission of the court, has set period which the assignment, transfer, or succession provision as collateral or disposition by other means of rehabilitation claims are prohibited. The assignment restriction reference period, it says below, below are details on the assignment restriction reference period and how repayment procedures will be affected during such period. Start and end date of assignments for restriction reference period. It says start date September 15th, 2022, Japan time. End date, it says base repayments deadline. It doesn't provide one, but you have to wonder if this would affect Bitcoin's price at all once it starts to take place. We'll keep an eye on it. This is more fallout right here, and this is Dr. Martin Heisboik, who is the head of research at Uphold and founder of Alpine Block and other things, right? So we see here that he's talking about the fact that Kyle Roche has filed to withdraw as counsel from several class action lawsuits against the digital asset related businesses. And basically, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you here because there was more to it. But what I am going to tell you is that it is obvious to me that if a lawyer is making a decision to do this, they know that those clips are so damning, they've had to retreat from the positions that they've taken. And we will follow up with more as we have it. Here's a follow-up I've been wanting to do, and this is fantastic. Great from Bill Belisarius. If the XLS20 vote is now at 85%, always good to have some cushion in a vote. There's no question about that. 80% or above for more than 2 weeks here. And we're going to see XLS20 NFT tokens brought and amended onto the ledger. How about that? That's very exciting. It's very exciting. And I don't say that because I'm not into NFTs like the Bored Apes. No offense to them. I think what they're doing is fantastic, but that's not my bag, right? What I'm excited about with NFTs are land registry issuance that could take place, intellectual property, music. The music industry, I believe, is going to be hugely affected, just like when it went from 8 tracks to cassettes to CDs, CDs to downloads to streaming to NFT collectibles. I believe that's where we're going here. So it's pretty exciting stuff. And then we see here that it's exciting news for Stellar as well. We know that they have the MoneyGram deal, and this is a little 1-minute clip that you need to see about how it all works seamlessly together with fiat dollars through your bank to MoneyGram to USDC on your phone. Check it out, all with the help of Stellar.
The digital economy lets people freely send, receive, and hold their wealth as digital assets at any time. But 60% of the world relies on cash, and people need to quickly, securely, and affordably convert their cash into digital assets and back. Stellar enables MoneyGram to provide cash to crypto on and off ramps. At participating MoneyGram locations, people can use these ramps to convert cash into USDC, held in their digital wallet. With USDC, people can use their money in ways they couldn't before. They can send it to another wallet worldwide or hold on to it, protecting themselves from market volatility. People can then access their USDC globally and pick it up in cash at a participating MoneyGram location. This is just the beginning. Cash to Crypto is powering real-world blockchain solutions and creating more equitable access to the global financial system.
It sure is. There's no question about it. And it really reminds me of when Ripple and XRP were partnered with MoneyGram, and we saw the same thing. I firmly believe that Ripple and XRP with MoneyGram was a litmus test, a live litmus test, not only that it could work with remittances around the world and yada, 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 but I believe it was a litmus test in a way for regulators to get a look at the product in use, in real live time use by the regulators, and look at it from every single aspect. And now we see Stellar with MoneyGram. Now, let's move on to talk about this because we had the digital dollar news that broke. And, it is very exciting because we know that Ripple is, in fact, here in the sandbox program with the Digital Dollar Project. Shout out to Chris Giancarlo and everybody on the Digital Dollar Project team. We're going to discuss here in a second the difference between the Digital Dollar Project and FedNow. Now, MTech is one of the things that's there, and MTech is being celebrated here by HBAR Foundation to follow MTech and their HBAR CBDC solution built on Hedera. Well, I love this because HBAR is one of the tokens that I'm interested in. And I was loving hearing this information, and you can see it right here. So look, it's not financial advice, but when I see these things, I went in FOMO'd yesterday, and yes, I bought more H-bar. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Not financial advice. But you know what? Let's talk about this. What is the Digital Dollar Project? How is it different from FedNow? This is an excellent thread. Molly Elmore, you have been doing such a service to this crypto Twitter space with your threads. These are fantastic. I love them. And I thank you for them. The U.S. has announced an exploratory project around retail CBDCs. Now, this gets into a conversation we've had on this channel quite a bit, so stay with me here. So now I'm going to go through this thread or this really quickly here. Exploration of U.S. central bank digital currency. Digital Dollar Project is a joint venture between Accenture and Digital Dollar Foundation. Remember, Accenture, Diana Adachi, told us they gave the green light for Ripple to the entire financial system when they did the vetting process on that company. Project is focused on potential benefits and challenges of retail, consumer, and central bank digital currency. Project preserves current two-tier system where money flows from central bank to commercial banks to consumers. Alternative would be one-tier central bank to consumer. Two-tier system ensure that commercial banks have a role in the financial ecosystem, which includes lending funds to people, businesses for a variety of reasons, as we know. Now, we also know central bank digital currencies have the ability to built in, know who's holding it or negative interest rates and things of that nature. So keep that in mind as we move forward. Now, the two-tiered system is really what the Digital Dollar Project is all about here. And I'm going to play you a clip in a second of why it's so important from Chris Giancarlo from the Digital Dollar Project. The U.S. Central Bank recently announced plans for FedNow, which is a system for banks to send funds to other banks. This concept is referred to as a wholesale CBDC, central bank digital currency. And it says Digital Dollar Project is the other side of funds transfer, either from a bank to a person to a business, or a person to person. This is called a retail CBDC. This is why I believe the USD coin can serve in that role. We'll get on that in a second. As the world of money moves to the blockchain, many central banks have announced plans to migrate their sovereign currency to a central bank digital currency. If the US wants to remain competitive, this is likely a necessary move. With the status as its global reserve currency, it is important that the dollar be available in global digital marketplace of value. When the crisis hit, forced businesses to close, and people needed money, it took governments time to get emergency funds to people. I didn't say the word because I get so scared, because in the early days of the pandemic, they were restricting our channel from saying those things and suspended us. A blockchain-based currency would make that much faster process should we face another crisis of that scale. However, there are potential concerns around retail CBDCs that are very important to understand and openly discuss. CBDCs use smart contracts, which means they can be programmed in various ways. One way is to limit how the funds can be spent, similar to WIC, where funds are only approved for certain types of purchases. Another CBDC use case is negative interest rates, which could be applied during a recession to stimulate spending. However, it would make it difficult for people to save. A healthy society looks forward to the future where people save money to plan for the future. It says here CBDCs are tied to a digital wallet that use a digital ID to confirm identity. The group who controls the database of digital IDs would have the ability to limit access to funds or remove funds from anyone in the system. While this would hopefully only be used to seize funds from criminals, it could also be used to punish citizens who speak out against the state. This is a current reality in China, where the CBDC is used as a tool to suppress dissent against the CCP. Unfortunately, people make mistakes. It's unclear if an innocent person were wrongfully labeled as a criminal and had to hand in their CBDC funds or have them seized, how that would quickly be rectified. It's one thing to accidentally put the wrong person on a no-fly list. It's another thing to mess with their money and seize their funds, right? Look, she makes great points here. She says here, it's another thing to seize the wrong person's money without any due process. Citizens would be wise to strongly advocate for a CBDC Bill of Rights. Well, that's exactly what I did here in this clip that you're going to see with Chris Giancarlo. And I've been talking about it. And here it is right here. Sorry for the mess up there, but listen to this clip in exchange right here.
Key thing about privacy is the best protection for privacy is for the government or the central bank to collect the data in the first place. Once that data has been collected, once there are electronic records of transactions that have taken place, then that data is potentially as accessible. And so I think the only way we're going to really generally protect privacy is not to have a central bank digital currency in the first place.
Okay, Chris, you have one more comment.
Well, but the problem with not having an entity that's governed by a constitutional right to privacy prevailing money means that unless there's statutory protection, you could have the government doing the same thing to big tech stablecoin operators that they do to big tech social media platforms and basically impose upon them the things the government couldn't do itself by censoring speech, which is what happens today. So you could envision a world, in fact, where the safest place in terms of privacy may be a government subject to the Fourth Amendment, as opposed to a big tech company that will do things government tells it to do, as it does today with censoring speech online.
So after thinking about what Chris had just said about the implications of social media being manipulated and censorship being in place, outsourcing censorship from the government to the private sector in social media, what an excellent point. It prompted me to ask Chris Giancarlo, are you suggesting the government should consider adopting a protocol of value for the internet to ensure that the Fourth Amendment and other freedoms and privacies are respected for the new financial system / the digital dollar? Chris Giancarlo says it's worth considering. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And I think that's where we catch up with Molly's thread and what's going on right now. And we have to remember that when you're talking about a CBDC and whether you should have a retail facing one and a CBDC wholesale, I think it needs to be two-tiered, right? Because that's the way the system currently is right now. Coming back to her thread very quickly here, right? It is very important to understand that because, you know, in the commercial bank system, the dollars that are in the bank are backing loans that have been made by that commercial bank. The dollars that are held in the Federal Reserve are backing the treasuries and the debt and liabilities that they are holding. Two different things. If you do a direct CBDC, certainly here in the US, you're going to begin to collapse the commercial banking system and you're going to give way too much power to the actual government. Now, put a third party like USD coin in between the government and ensure that you don't have a scenario set up just like you do with social media and government, where platforms like Twitter and others work as a third arm to the U.S. government and act as censorship freely for the government and certain administrations that are in place, which we are seeing now. You have to ensure that that doesn't happen. And the only way to do that is to get that Bill of Rights for a CBDC and use the Constitution for the members and the citizens of the country that use it. Now, I want to show this one second here. I echoed that thought yesterday with Adopt a Value Protocol to will Americans have a CBDC Bill of Rights to ensure programmable money? Is it used as a control mechanism? And I said exactly what the exchange was between me and Chris Giancarlo about adopting a protocol and hold it to a constitutional standard for all U.S. citizens who use it. Let's regulate the activities, not the entities that happen on that money value highway, that internet protocol like an XRP Ledger or a Stellar, right? Just like cops on a highway, don't speed, don't swerve, don't break the law, and don't get pulled over. That's what we're really talking about here. Now let's talk about this. Jungle had a great thread that he put out here, and I want to celebrate him for stepping out. FedNow will roll out in stages. That's exactly right. It's exactly what's going to happen. And that's what FedNow says too. Someone will provide linked domestic payment system to cross-border. The best solution will fill the gap. Brazil PIX system is one of the best in the world. Ripple and others are working to expand their domestic cross-border. You know, it's obvious, right? Brazil has a modern, effective payment system known as PIX. Economies and societies become increasingly digitized. Brazil will need an additional programmable technology layer and settlements and help fill the gap. Goes on to say here, the Federal Reserve has included Ripple and others in the development of the FedNow system. Don't you think they understand domestic payments and don't need this capability? Of course they do. The plan has always been to expand the system cross-border. This is just step one. Thank God. Thank God, Jungle. You know, somebody has to say it every once in a while. Lord knows if I say it, they're going to, here come the cancel culture, right? But thank God Jungle had the nuts to say it. Will Ripple provide the infrastructure for making FedNow an international real-time payment solution? I have no idea. Whoever has the best capability will, and that is still being worked out. And one could argue whether that's not already done too, right? But we're going to find out. And that is the exciting part. We will find out. It's a great thread, Jungle. It's a must read, especially for those cancel culture referees out here anointing themselves as to who can say what about Ripple, XRP, or FedNow. If you can't see the organization of domestic payment systems around the world, FedNow included, for the ultimate use of cross-border settlement capabilities, you never will. You never will. Not a day in your life. And FedNow participants, Temenos and Volante, are also Ripple partners. Let's know that going into this too. It will be interesting to watch the last mile, as David Schwartz refers to it, come together. Look at this. So Temenos, FedNow, Ripple partner. What else we got? I just went in there and found these two. There's more. There's tons of them, I'm sure. Volante and FedNow. And then what do we have? These little comments here when we have David Schwartz discussing this. He says right here, and let's start with this one. In working to build modern international payments, we discovered the biggest obstacle is often the very last hop. Getting the funds to the payment recipient through domestic payment systems. But it's lacking connectivity to consumers. CBDCs won't solve the last mile problem that has made modernizing international payments so difficult. Fortunately, domestic systems are modernizing. SEPA, Singapore, and others already have very strong domestic systems. The U.S. is implementing FedNow, though that won't be live for another few years. And we've gotten a deal on that next year, July. Right? Now coming back to this, so there is definitely an opportunity here to bridge domestic real-time payment systems such as FedNow, the clearinghouse for USD, with powerful benefits for SMEs, small medium enterprises, ultimately consumers around the world. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There you have that. So, let's all, look, I don't have a problem with somebody thinking something differently than I do. I just don't go out here and tell somebody they're not allowed to think it. The problem is there's so many people out here not giving people their own space, and that's dangerous. That's dangerous. Here we see BitBoy had on Fred Rispoli, legal analyst here, who says very quickly, Ripple's going to win this case, ladies and gentlemen. The downside of this is that the SEC can continue to drag it out even after a Ripple win. I've said many times, I believe ultimately the XRP ledger, XRP token, Ripple the company are so very important that this must probably go all the way to the Supreme Court, because what you don't legislate, you can't regulate. You can't regulate or legislate something that hasn't been defined. And if this truly is built for all the money, you're going to need to go the distance for that finality. But that doesn't mean that Ripple can't move ahead with a Ripple win while the SEC appeals to a higher court. Let's take a listen.
On a couple things with the XRP lawsuit, and then a couple really interesting things. The current status of the whole Ripple SEC thing, not too much has been happening, at least that we know about. A lot of it's happening behind sealed motions. And the overall good news, bad news, that a good news sandwich that I want to give everybody is Ripple is going to win this case.
And I love hearing that. And he goes on to make the point, too, that if you remember about a year or so ago, that the SEC was allowing their employees to continue to trade XRP inside of the SEC. They were allowed to trade XRP up until like 2019 or 2020 timeframe. If they knew so clearly that XRP was a security, why did they allow their employees and officials to trade an unregistered security? That's where we're at today. And look at this before we get out of here. I wanted to share this for anybody who's listening that is a developer. #1 ranked API from CoinPeprika for crypto aggregation and market data. It's right here. If you want it, it's right here. And I'm going to make sure you have a link to it as well, but use this promo code and get 5% discount on that API service. #1 ranking. That is pretty damn impressive right there. Make sure you tell them I sent you. Come on in. I'll catch all of you on the next one.